Good evening. I'm Steve Shipp. I'll call the meeting to order, but I'd like Susan, are you going to do the roll, please?
Yes, I am. I'm over here today.
Okay.
We're just changing everything today.
And Christmas shirt on and I missed you already.
Okay. Fred Atkins.
Here.
Greta Campbell has an excused absence. Fred Adeliot.
Here.
Randy Price. Randy Price. Joe Zerkowitz has an excused absence. Harlan Parrish.
Here.
Dennis Perlman. Michelle Perez Macias has an excused absence. Brian Rist. Brian Rist. David Schellenbarger.
Here.
Sia Sharman. Here. Steve Schimm.
Here.
Chris Semino.
Here.
Thank you, everyone.
Susan, I might suggest in lieu of the way traffic was, if you have cell numbers for any of the people that we thought would be here and are not, maybe you could text them where we are.
Okay,
Because they could get, I mean, this was brutal tonight.
the traffic. I think that we have heard from almost everyone,
Okay,
that they were unable to attend. Some notified us in advance, and some said they were maybe not. So
okay. Well, if there's anybody that we think might be wandering in the parking lot, that might be
I
worthwhile.
think Randy might be the only one we haven't heard from.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
The next meeting on the agenda this evening is our meeting dates for 2023. They mirror what we did this year. They are Thursday evenings, again at the 6 o'clock time frame. And I think our committee probably should give approval to those. Anybody have any heartburn with this Thursday at 6 routine?
Got it.
They're scheduled well in advance. Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We'll look for you all to have 100% attendance now that you've approved them. But please do enter them on your calendar and get them, and we appreciate you being at the meeting. The next item is the approval of the prior meeting minutes. I think, were they circulated? I tried to click on that link and it didn't give me that. Okay, we all have a copy. Have you had a chance to read through them, or would anybody like to read through them? I couldn't get the link to work, so I had us to get hard copies.
Mr. Shipp, I would move for approval.
Second.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear who was the move.
That was Harlan, Parrish,
Second.
Dave. Any comments? Very good. I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. If somebody keeps reading and finds something of concern, would you please stick your hand up and say, hey, we'll reopen that. We can always amend. I now invite any public comment. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to address us? Seeing none, we'll continue to item 5 as the board meeting member update. Kathleen Morgan.
Yeah, very short and sweet. I just wanted to give you the name of our new board chair, Armour Persons. He's the newly elected representative from District 5, and the board vice chair is Sam Fisher from Cape Coral, District 1. I also want to talk a little bit about attendance at this meeting. We have a number of people who are not attending on a regular basis. We have a rule about attendance, that 3 times, 3 strikes, you're out. We have people people who've reached the end of their terms and are not reapplying. It is critical that we get some new names for this committee, and I'm asking each of you to reach out. We want a diverse community. We want representation from the county, from the whole county. We want representation from different groups. It's going to be an interesting year ahead, because although ISSOC is committed in a way to doing certain things, Ian has changed things up for us in a significant way. And we may have to be talking about sales tax dollars in a way that we have not been. And so I think it's really important that we have the community representation here when we talk about things, but also people who are able to go out in the community and tell people in the community what we're doing and why. So please, I'm asking you to encourage some people to, we need at least, I don't have my notes with me, but I think we need somewhere between 6 and 8 new members. So we got our work cut out.
And the committee is full, what's the
15?
15?
So we have had several candidates renew, or request renewal, and also one additional, so I think we have maybe 4 vacancies.
Oh, now it's down to 4, okay, great, good. Nevertheless, it's nice to have, even if people aren't, even if we're not appointing people today, it's nice to have an inventory. Somebody needs to go off the committee, it's nice to have a list of people to approach to come right back on rather than have to go out and look. So.
Kathleen, I would add to that, and you mentioned getting out and telling the story, just as an update. We were scheduled, you all may recall, scheduled to go in front of the board presenting the presentation that you all saw at our last meeting. And Ian interrupted that. When we had the hurricane bearing down, there was just no way that was going to happen. I postponed that on purpose until after the new year. Things will hopefully be a little more settled in. But that presentation process will get us out, and we might want to take a look, Susan, incorporating a slide in there that, you know, if you're interested in serving on the committee, how do you put your name in the hat? And because we will be presenting to business groups and service clubs and people that we may not know of. I mean, I'm removed from the business community now. I'm not a current event, and I could find you some great golfers, but they're not necessarily the ones you want. So, just a thought, we might want to amend that. Moving along, a review of the sales tax funded projects, and Dave Schellenberger, I'm remiss. Dave's joined us. Kathleen appointed him to the group, and welcome.
Thank you. I did attend the last meeting on Zoom, but that's not quite like being here in the real thing. So I feel very welcome here. Thank you for giving the opportunity to be part of this, and I hope that as we go forward, we can deliver to the community what they expect, which is responsible capital spending. So I'm happy to be here.
And next person is Frederick Ross with an update on the capital projects.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas to you. Thank you everyone for being here today. Always excited to kind of brag and show off on some of the hard work our departments have been doing, both our construction and our maintenance department. You can go to the slideshow. Hey. So I think we're first starting with some of our new construction projects. First we have listed our Manasseh Elementary, our new elementary school out in our east zone.
Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah. Fort Myers Technical College, doing some renovations there on some of their program facilities there at Fort Myers. Franklin Park Elementary, right down the road from us. Very excited about that community wraparound concept that's going to be there. Right now they're completing the portable campus across from James Stevens, where the students will be relocated right before Christmas break, going into the new year. And in January, they'll start that demolition of that current school. Also having an addition going out there at Lehigh Acres Middle, formerly MM Middle School, adding some additional capacity there. And then also a campus renovation at Riverdale High School that will be going on. All of those are in the construction phase over in Scott Rickenbacher's group, and they're managing those projects. The next are renovation projects, also managed by our construction department. I won't go through every single one of them, but you can kind of see by the type there, we can kind of categorize them by HVAC projects, plumbing, there's a re-roofing there, and some enhancements to the single point of entry vegetable projects that were previously done. So you know, again, these are projects that our maintenance department have come up with as part of their rotational plans, as part of their needs assessments, and they hand those projects over to our construction to manage those projects. Some projects that have been completed since our last update, Cape Coral Elementary and Fort Myers Middle HVAC renovations. So again, part of those kind of groups of HVAC renovation projects that were going on.
Want to talk a little bit about the savings?
So yes, it's always great to have project savings. Scott would be mad at me if I hadn't talked about those, so thanks for that. So those are, you know, just once that project is over, money that, you know, they found a way to save, whether it be, I know one big thing is direct material purchases, where they can, you know, go kind of pull that money out of the project and purchase that directly with the supplier, saving that tax money on those projects, and just other cost, you know, effective re-engineering, whatever, you know, they come up creative ideas, they come up with on those projects to save money and return that money back to the district. So yes, always a great brag on Scott and his group when they're able to, you know, even with the cost escalations and all the things that are going on, even being able to return money back to the district. So very happy with that. Thank you.
Good.
When you say project cost on the previous slide, total project cost and final cost here, are those entirely funded by the sales tax money?
Good question.
Yeah.
Or if they're, we're looking at projects that are within the sales tax.
This is only sales tax, okay.
Does the sales tax dollar comprise the total budget? I was under the impression that money may come from more than one pot.
It may, it would be, where that would happen is if, like the HVAC, we have a pot of money for HVAC that's capital outlay millage, we have a pot from sales tax,
Right.
so there's the
So there
projects,
could be some blending going on.
there could be blending going on, yes.
But each one of those projects has some sales tax money in it, and some of them may be 100%, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So up to 5.6 million at Fort Myers High, that's not sales tax, that's some combination. Could be some combination of sales tax and non-sales tax.
Could be. More than likely, for an HVAC, we would try and fund it all from one, if we could, so.
Could you back up a slide? Only because I was in the business and am somewhat familiar with the district and how it's functioned over the years. When you look at HVAC and electrical and plumbing renovation projects, many of those, if you didn't have the money, become deferred maintenance. And that's a pleasant way of saying putting it off until it's really a crisis. And there's a lot of catch-up going on, and there's also expenditures now that I'm sure are being made that are constructive and will prevent a bigger problem in the future.
Yes.
That you just didn't have those resources before. So when you see that many of those kinds of projects, that's pretty neat. That means you're cleaning up a lot of junk.
Yes, and kudos to our Director of Maintenance, Barbara Cedino, and her preventive maintenance program that she has in place that identifies those key systems that may be about to fail or causing, you know, excess service requests, excess energy and money, and look to replace those. Yep, great point.
And a number of them save energy, reduce operating costs. It's an interesting phase of what's going on right now with the tax dollars. Sorry to interrupt. but-
No.
Is that it, Frederick?
No, one more slide. So that was, all that was construction. One slide here to kind of summarize maintenance, in the different category areas that they are, have active projects ongoing, with sales tax dollars. You know, a big number there on generators, again, HVAC, you know, so where you saw on construction, those were probably bigger HVAC projects. These are smaller HVAC, projects that the maintenance staff, is working on, switch gears, some roofs and traffic improvements. So, maintenance staff also has their share of projects that they are, working on, more typically smaller in dollar and scale, but also to that same point, are going to replacing equipment, replacing things that are causing excess service requests, excess energy uses, and excess dollars in operating. That is my last.
What is switchgear?
Electrical, I don't know if we have any electricians in here that may be able to speak on it much better than I can, but it's an electrical component, for the, building.
Okay.
Yeah.
Switchgear generally refers to the equivalent of the breaker box in your house.
Yeah.
Only it's a lot bigger in the school.
Which is probably
A lot bigger.
buildings, yeah.
Okay, next is budget revenue, collections and projections. Matt Acosta, please.
Good evening, everybody. Matt Acosta, Business Services Coordinator. The first slide we're going to look at is our FY23 estimated revenue. This estimated capital revenue, this is unchanged from where we looked at it back in September. Still 345.9 million, and this is new revenue, not including fund balances carried over from previous years. Of that, 31% is from sales tax. Next slide, please.
So Matt,
Yes.
do you have estimates about the impact on capital of the property tax?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question.
The question is, any idea what the impact will be on our capital budget of the change in property taxes?
So right now, we don't have a good idea. We know that there will be some impact with the capital millage because it is generated off of the local property taxes. We know that Fort Myers Beach and Sanibel were hit really hard during the hurricane, and the state is considering an abatement program to abate people's taxes if their homes are unlivable. And so that will reduce the amount that we will be receiving. As of right now, just some preliminary numbers, for Sanibel, for capital, we were looking at about 9.7. And for Fort Myers Beach, we were looking at about 6.8 million that we would have generated from those two municipalities. So we're not sure really what that means until they get a better handle on, where those numbers fall. So we could see that reduction in the capital millage in some way, shape, or form. We still expect to get some. The part that we're seeing a delay in right now is actually getting funds into the district because, tax bills went out almost a month late from where they normally would. So right now, we would have seen a lot more money coming in than we are right now, so.
Is the sales tax revenue projection modified yet?
No,
To
this,
reflect the change in tourist traffic lately?
it's interesting, our sales tax really, we haven't seen an impact on our sales
It's
tax.
well, the projections
We've been
so far.
checking on it or monitoring it closely because of not only hurricane related stuff, but as well as just the current state of the economy and things kind of being up in the air, not knowing, where we're gonna be in 6 months. As of now, we've only collected through till September, so anything hurricane related, we haven't seen that yet in the sales tax. As of through September, we've seen continued growth in the sales tax. So we've seen year over year growth. Each year we've grown a little bit in that amount, and we're seeing that again this year. So through September, we haven't seen any change.
We are expecting an increase though with
Yeah.
all of the building and stuff that's going to have to happen, people
Yeah.
are paying sales
Yeah.
tax, so we're
And-
expecting,
and
You're replacing
people here.
100,000 vehicles.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember, vehicles, I think are capped at 5,000, you only have
Yeah.
10,000.
Don't count all.
Yeah, they're capped, so.
And
You got
we're also-
people living in the area doing some of this work too, that's gonna be spending money after the couple of hours, everybody's here.
There's also consideration though impact on tourism dollars, which are, part of the sales tax generated, and we don't know yet what that will look like.
The property tax side of it's going to take a hit, but you also, there will be FEMA money that will flow into the community that will not directly benefit the district, but it will keep us, get us close to whole on that by the time we're all done. I worked with Charlotte County when they had the Hurricane Charlie go through there, and they ended up with basically a rebuilt district south of the river because they had a destroyed district south of the river. It's gonna be interesting to see how all this plays out.
The next slide, please. So this is our sales tax budget. We have 205 million, 96 million of that is carryover from FY '22, and then the 108 that we saw in the previous slide is newly budgeted. Of that, the biggest portion is for maintenance costs, about 45% or 91 million. And there next is construction at 22%, and this does include debt service for our new schools. Next slide, please. So here you can see that year over year, this is the growth I was speaking of. So each year we've kind of just increased a little bit. Made this 11 million for September, big jump from the previous year. And I said we've collected through to September. Next slide, please. This is the total to date. So for all the period that we've had sales tax from January 2019 through September, we've anticipated having 309 million collected, and we've actually collected 347 million, or 37 million over budgeted, 12% over. For the previous year, we were about 29% over what we budgeted, or 25 million. And then for this year, we have about 4 million over what we anticipated, or 18% over. Slide, please.
I have a question.
Yes.
If you back up 2 slides, you had expenditures, back up 1 more. You had the 23 budget of 205,000, yet our collections in round numbers might run 125. That's carryover from prior years, that is the difference.
Yes, so so the 108 is what we budgeted new revenue for this year that we received in sales tax, and about 96 is what we carried over for the previous year and is now in the new budget. So that adds up to 2.
So that's a looking forward when the money that we've already collected starts.
Yes.
Got it.
So this final slide is a comparison between FY '22's actual and the '23 projected, and then as well what we've received so far, which, as I mentioned before, is through September. So 27 million collected to date, or about 25% of the budget through September.
So Matt, some of our members are new and might not know about the asterisk special collections quarterly, the quarterly discretionary. So maybe could you just explain what that is?
Yes, so the quarterly discussion actually has a whole little document if someone wants to read it out.
Look at you prepared.
It wasn't a setup, I promise.
So counties may impose a sales surtax called discretionary sales surtax or local option county sales tax. These are collected, a lot of it is from out of state purchases that they are, they're purchased out of county sales tax, but they collect them quarterly, this surtax, and then it's distributed by the county. So we get a portion of those out of county sales tax purchases. And that's where we get these pieces each quarter. And about usually around 2 to 3 million. Occasionally they're a little bit more, we've had about 4 million at times. But these are in addition to the normal sales tax that we receive. If everybody wants to read, I can hand this out.
Is it time to change your FY '23 projected, or, I mean, you look like you were projecting a 4 or 5% decrease in FY '23, and yet it's trending in the first 4 months up 18%. Should you change that, or are you waiting to see what October, November, December brings?
I think it would be better to wait through that 6 month, and about halfway we can kind of have a better estimate of where we're gonna end up. December, January, they're pretty big years, pretty big months for sales tax.
But the money received in October is actually spent by the consumer in earlier months, right?
Right, so there's about a 2-month delay between when we actually receive the funds and how we record it in our system.
So it appears that the budgeting process is somewhat underestimating actual for second year in a row, maybe more. Are we delaying the use of that money in capital projects because we are underestimating what we expect to get? Or are we being too conservative? Should we be expecting more money and therefore planning more projects?
For previous years, we've definitely been conservative. We took a step back based off of just our estimates and looking at what state of Florida estimated for sales tax generally. And just the uncertainty with the state of the economy, with the goal of looking at it midway through the year and kind of seeing if we do need to increase that. We definitely increased it. If you look at what we projected last year, it was 87 million. So to jump up to 108 is a pretty big jump from what the previous projections are. I won't say now that we I wouldn't say that we are still way budgeted or we are still under budgeted. It seems like we're still tracking well. I don't think I would necessarily say that we are underestimated at this point. I think it's too early to tell.
I think we have 4 years' experience.
Mhm.
And sometimes you want to sleep well at night, so we tend to, under
Yeah.
the budget, it's easy to achieve. But there are so many needs in the school system that we don't want to let money sit idle. If we have it, we really want to make sure we put it to work. You understand what I'm saying?
I would say that in the beginning, I would agree, we're probably a little conservative because we don't know what the economy is going to be doing. And I would much rather be able to add things to the plans rather than have everybody go back and I say, you can't do this, you can't do that. So
Yeah.
we do start off conservative and then midway, as we're looking and we're seeing growth, then we'll make adjustments as we go.
And I think the point is that when you do have more, you do add things and do
Yes.
more.
Yes.
So we do use.
Yeah. If these projects, the lead time,
Yeah.
you don't snap your fingers and do it.
And remember, costs are going up too, so it's a good thing we have this extra coming in because the cost of construction and all of everything is just going up, and so this helps cushion with that as well.
Thank you.
Where the real rubber hits the road is if this all comes on you, Frederick. Your maintenance department in running their smaller capital maintenance projects in your construction department, if they are able to expend the dollars efficiently, the higher risk to the taxpayer is that we don't manage our projects well and we don't hit budgets, as opposed to spending the money not spending the money as quickly as we could. And I do think our staff's focused on that. We have not seen, I don't think we've seen a significant project cost overrun since we started now in a couple of years. But we've had to increase the budgets too in order to account for what's going on in the industry.
In addition, when we looked at some of these estimates, for FY21 instead 22, a lot of what we were considering as well was pent-up demand for after COVID, as well as additional stimulus surplus. Now that's starting to get out of the system, so it was not, it was kind of measuring how much of that do we pull out of our factory, at this point. So when we looked at 108 million compared to the 87 or so that we had last year, that was a little scary to jump off the budget. So we say, okay, I really think we're going to hit here, but if we don't, I'm going to have a lot of restless nights. So it's staying, I feel like it's a good estimate, staying still conservative, but not as we've kind of done previously.
And Dave, having been on this from day one, when we first started, after about the first quarter or two, we changed the projections up significantly.
Yeah.
And if you project that out over 10 years, it was hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So then you start doing the planning, and all of a sudden you're planning for hundreds of millions more. You might not want to get over the tips of your skis.
Yeah.
And I was encouraging us to be a little bit more conservative, because I do think that there's a recession out there. I think it's good that we have reserves. The hurricanes, have created multi-millions of dollars of repairs. It's good to be more conservative in this regard than it is to start projects that you might not be able to pay for in year 4, 5, 6.
My question was spawned by the fact we just looked at 2 projects where it's considerable savings, 25% savings of what we thought the cost was going to be. And we have revenue coming in excess of what we budgeted to expect. And sometimes we build so much comfort into the system that we're missing some opportunities. That was my point.
Yeah.
But I get it.
I agree.
I appreciate your experience, Chris, because I just have, a couple months of perception here.
I would tell you too, that when we started out, and that all of a sudden we had this revenue stream get passed, that it wasn't a slam dunk that that was gonna happen for sure. So all of the capital planning leading up to the passage of the sales tax was done likely on the assumption that it was not going to pass, and then we'll figure out what to do with it when we get it. So that, we probably had I'll bet you it took the district at least 6 months to alter the capital planning on how to spend that money properly, because they weren't hanging their hat on it passing.
Yeah.
So our ramp up was slower than had they taken a more aggressive stance as to whether it was gonna pass. It was a piece of good news, but we weren't prepared to really utilize the good news until later. What would you say? Probably didn't have a huge impact on what we actually did for the first 8 months on that.
Yes, probably not the first.
I don't
I
was
think
gonna
there was
say,
a
I was gonna
double-
say a year.
I don't
Yeah,
think
it was
there
a little
a
rough.
double
You
turn.
didn't have you didn't dare to dream until the.
But, there probably wasn't a shovel turned on a project that had been planned ahead of time. that
They put some of the maintenance and safety and
Right.
Yeah.
to work
Yeah.
faster than the
But it took a while to
construction.
ramp that up.
Perfect.
And also remember that collections lag, so the referendum passed in November, sales tax took effect in January of 2019, and so we didn't see collections until like March 31st. That was the first income that we received. And that was our first sales tax meeting was March of 2019.
Didn't we take out,
Be told, you probably didn't know what you were gonna do with it till June of that year, in a real sense.
and didn't we take out debt to sort of expedite projects?
Well, we had originally been all set to pay as we go with sales tax, remember? And then as soon as the sales tax passed, they passed legislation that said that because if you can't meet the cost per student station, which we all agree can't be met with what they're saying that we could meet, but we can't. So they forced us to do the certificates of participation and take debt on in order to do it. So that's why we had to flip and go to the debt and do certificates of participation, which is why we still have debt that we have to pay now on that.
So we front-loaded some projects to be paid off with the cash flow.
Thank you, I understand that.
Always have to ask staff a question leading up to the motions that we pass. Are you guys aware of any projects that money's been spent on that might be questionable as to whether the sales tax revenue was applicable to those projects?
I can say with clear conscience that every project that is on there, we scrutinize before we pay for use sales tax
Fits within
dollars
our
for it.
category.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I ask a related but separate question, and I'm sorry to probe? This committee only exists to oversee what was passed on the ballot.
That's correct.
I'd like to understand what was passed on the ballot that enables the school district to spend the sales tax money for. Particularly really because we're gonna get into a lot of Ian-related expenses. And that we ought to make sure whether we're capable of using sales tax dollars to pay for Ian-related maintenance, construction, et cetera.
You created the segue for Susan's comments because she's gonna give you some input as to the Ian.
That's what I'm here for, to say Susan. That's my nickname in high school.
Well, when I asked that question, the first thing she told me earlier in the week was, Steve, you gotta recognize that we just received our final check from, or haven't received our final check from, which storm was that?
Hurricane Irma 5 years ago.
5 years ago. So it is a very elongated process.
Sure. I just, our role is purely just, did you use the sales tax for what it was intended to?
Yes. And we can, I know since we have new people too, it's probably good to again send that referendum and the items that were in that referendum to everyone so that you can see again what was on that. So I'll make a note that we get that sent out.
Susan, why don't,
Sorry.
you've got some comments regarding the storm and what happens?
Yes.
Well, why don't you address that now before we do our motion? part of the
Okay,
meeting?
great. So, Hurricane Ian has caused extensive damage to our community. I think everyone here has probably been impacted. So far, estimates of known costs are $273 million for the district. $273 million. Hurricane Irma, by comparison, which was the largest impact we'd ever seen, was $31 million. And we are still managing projects with FEMA, and we've recovered about $22 million from Hurricane Irma, so about 2/3. So where we are now, we have not spent any sales tax funds on Hurricane Ian recovery operations to date. I was going to look and I could pull up the exact language on the referendum, which indicates we can spend on 4 categories: construction and major renovations, maintenance, safety and security, and technology. So everything that we report is on those 4 categories. Our budget lines and account lines are aligned with those 4 categories, and so they all have to slide into one of those. So we have had our attorney review the referendum, and what could we potentially use funds to recover from Ian for some of those if we chose. So we're just doing our due diligence of what do we have, how are we gonna pay for things, and so we are working towards that. We will absolutely report to this committee if we are making, first the board would make approvals of major changes, and we would communicate that with this committee if major changes were going to occur. And at this time, again, no funds have been expended from sales tax for Hurricane Ian recovery operations.
270 million is a huge number, but relative to the amount of physical projects and campuses and schools and everything that we have out there, it's a relatively small percentage of its replacement value.
And
I mean, a high school right now costs, to put that in perspective, if you had a total loss of a high school, that's $100 million round number.
correct,
The elementary school is what, 60?
it's about 56 now.
So, that 270 is a huge number, but we have over 100 campuses, am I correct?
We have 88 campuses, and the 273 million number does not include, we're not done counting yet. So we don't have, for example, decisions need to be made on a couple of our schools.
Right.
The boards and staff are working towards that. And so the cost of the decisions, right, what we choose to do, there would be different costs for different options. So those are, the 273 million is the known number of best guess, lowballing again, as we're making plans, what we think our short-term damages will be.
And there will be some federal dollars that flow to reimburse, but we may have to upfront cash flow.
Correct. On Tuesday, next week, we will be presenting to the board a status of where we are with cash flow and the options that we're pursuing. There are a couple of FEMA projects, such as debris removal, that FEMA, we applied today for expedited payment, which would give us half, and then we'd have to come back and show proof of everything before we receive the other half. So that could potentially be $1 million there. There's another category of projects we're pursuing the same thing on. I would say on Hurricane Irma, it was a couple of years before we saw any money from FEMA. Now, so there's a order of claims processing, so insurance is first. We are insured for, all of our properties are insured, we have high deductibles, and then we are eligible to receive the 75 million, and we're pretty darn sure we're gonna hit that. And so of the 273 million, the first 75 million would be reimbursed by insurance. So far, we have asked for our first draw on that of 25 million. We've substantiated with documentation 17.5 million, and we've already made a second request for the next 15 million. So our insurance company is being highly responsive. We've put in place a strategy of a consulting team that's helping us to gather data, to more quickly prepare and submit that information, lessons learned from the last time around. And we think we're in a much better shape to have a more expedient and hopefully a higher percentage recovery than we did on the last major storm.
Any questions?
Yeah, trying to figure out how to frame it, but we've invested a couple $100 million over the last 4 years in strengthening and hardening our schools. I hate the term hardening, but we've used it in this committee quite a bit. Has anything, I'm trying to think about the presentation, Steve, about the investments that we've made through the sales tax and the value it's brought to the school system. Have any of the roof replacement projects that we've funded through sales tax protected that school from damage that might not have happened had they been using an old roof or an old air conditioner or an old, right? So that the investments we've made actually, I mean, obviously we didn't, at Fort Myers Beach, it just got wiped out, right? But if it was the Cerro High School and it had an old roof and thanks to the sales tax, we put a new roof on it, that's a good story.
It is a good story, and we have a mixed bag. So we have some schools we put a new roof on and it's gone or damaged, and others where, I think I heard a report this week about the hurricane windows at Sanibel, which are good, can be continued to be used or used elsewhere. So that was an investment that we made on those, that structure at Sanibel, and it withstood the storm.
And even the investment in the laptops, right? I think we've done, I don't know, 100,000 laptops or something. And then you had people out of school. Did we utilize remote learning or anything that was made possible by the sales tax? Just trying to think of stories.
The schools were closed for 3 weeks and there was no instruction at that time. You know, our staff are the same people. We were at campuses with insurance adjusters and inspections going on, and at one school there were 3 administrators there. 2 of them were homeless from the storm. So the staff who is doing the work to recover is also impacted personally, and so it's a bit of a challenge.
Did you lose any school property at individuals' homes? I'm thinking book bags washed away, laptops ruined, right? That I'm just trying to think of the stories.
I know that from personal experience, because my son is a senior at Riverdale, I know that he had friends of his on the swim team that lost everything they had, including Chromebooks, including school books, all those kinds of things. I also know that he did not get 3.5 weeks of break and had IB work done like the entire time. So it just depends. I mean, yes, the teachers gave them time to catch up when they got back, but fortunately he was able to keep up on everything. But yeah. Mainly because I kept the hammer down, but we won't have that.
Well, the other piece from the aspect of that, 2 of our schools were significantly delayed, both Lexington and Diplomat, in order to abide by the district commitment to calendar, the DOE's expectation for number of instructional minutes. We transferred those 2 school buildings to, because the students were not able to occupy them, we weren't able to disperse them to another site. We went ahead and moved ahead with Florida Virtual for that, I think it was 10 days, which gave us credit for those students being in school, which kept the makeup days shorter. So there was that opportunity. Even when the kids came back, there was a 14-day minimum window for Florida Virtual, so the teachers continued in that model. We actually got some very interesting feedback, more curriculum-oriented than business-oriented, but we did use that technology in order to have that and be able to make that happen.
Any other questions?
I would ask, is there anything that, in particular, questions you would like us to report on at our next quarterly meeting?
If you could build an Ian update into the agenda on a regular basis until we think we've got a handle on what we have, I think that would be of interest. Doesn't need to be a long drawn out affair, but.
It was on the agenda, it was off the agenda, I wasn't quite sure.
Particularly since you mentioned earlier, there's a 2-month lag, so we're just getting into that
Right.
2-month phase now.
The next item on the agenda is our motions and votes, and I would entertain motions.
Yeah, point of clarification. typically we have reports out from construction, maintenance, technology, and safety. And so rather than vote on all of the financials at one time, are we gonna hear about the other projects or no?
For the last time we met was in September, in late September, I believe. No, maybe it was early.
22nd.
Okay, and so technology implements the safety projects, and for this, since September, we have not had an update. We have not focused or expended effort on sales tax projects, was the report from Dwayne Alton, our Chief Information Officer. And so that slide was omitted this time because there is no change from the prior time.
No expenditure of resources on that or no focus put on it? Because I think we're just gonna approve the expenditures.
That's correct.
So there were no expenditures for maintenance and safety.
So
I mean, sorry, technology and safety.
Technology, there could be some ongoing, I think we did buy some laptop when we came back. We knew that students had lost laptops, so our strategy there was, I think we bought some number, 8,000. And we're not sure yet, until everyone comes back, how many of them are on the regular roll or how many of those would go to sales tax. So what we did is we spent with the, non-sales tax funds and still working on, managing all the data coming in. So we have not spent any sales tax money on Ian, and technology has indicated no progress updates. So I'm hesitant to say not a penny was spent out of the technology budget in the past 3 months. So that's the information I have. Kelly, can you add anything?
I would probably say that there was probably expenditures, but it was probably final expenditures on things that he had already presented, that they just came in, the final expenditures came in on them. But they didn't start anything new, so it wouldn't have been anything different from what was presented in September.
Other questions?
So, okay. So do we vote on that section then?
That's what I was gonna say.
Not sure that we're beyond
What's presented?
Right.
above reproach. Yeah.
Right, I would make a motion that we approve the financials related to construction and maintenance for this quarter. And then we true up and vote on the 6
Right.
months.
Once they have
when they
the
come back.
details. Yeah,
Is it?
I would second that motion.
All in favor?
Chris made the motion and who seconded it? Pardon? Thank you.
Say, if there's nothing reported on, there's nothing to vote on.
Right.
Yeah, right.
That's it.
Any member comments beyond what we've already done?
Oh, we have one more motion,
We did motion on
We
the
have-
expenses.
one on financials and we have one on projects also.
Okay. Somebody make a motion on the project, please.
I'll make a motion on the projects presented.
Fred, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any other member comments, questions? We had a short agenda this evening, and that was very much on purpose. The district is head over heels still trying to figure out what they got their arms around out there, I'm sure. And there's a lot of hard work going on. So. Thank you all for attending.
Dr. Bernier, did you make any comments before we?
Just to thank everyone for their service. In a previous life in a former district, this was what we referred to as our Cove Committee, which was construction oversight. Really appreciate the extra eyes on these particular dollars, because they are a promise made to a community. And we have to ensure that we're making good on that promise, and I appreciate all of you. And to Ms. Morgan's point, I'm gonna try to lure in a couple people at the foundation tomorrow. Maybe we ought to compare notes and tag team. Kyle seems like he's well fit and ready to go. So there's just a couple other people I think we ought to take a look at. And I was gonna call also Mr. Caddy. I know he stepped down, but he's got kind of a large organization, so maybe he can.
I took his place.
I thought you were already here, Arlen. I'm sorry. I realized
I came in right after
I
him.
didn't know you had been
And if you need a bank for cash flow.
Yeah.
So, yes, we'll continue to look, because I was reminded today from Mary Reeder, you know, still getting used to a new position in a new community. I have 2 appointments, one to make an appointment and the other is to put somebody, sort of in reserve. So I will work on those prior to the holiday. Try to capitalize on some good Christmas and holiday spirit.
Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Get the, yes, sorry.